Wasted money on cures. Forgot how to fix myself. They say that time is free. Then why is it so precious? Oh, I'll say memories in my head, like Polaroids on walls. They remind you to look ahead. Time is running out. Time is running out. Lately I've lost my track. I've sailed the deeper seas, hoping to find something to bring back better times. Oh, I'll say memories in my head, like Polaroids on walls. They remind you to look ahead. But time is running out. 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 Time is running. Time is running out. But time is running out. What if my best days are over? They can't be over. They can't be over now. Time is running out. What if my best days are over? They can't be over now. Time is running out. Time is running out. Time is running out.
Can you believe it? We're back for our second session, getting ready for Unit 3 tomorrow. And we did just under 45 minutes on personal finance, a slightly shorter session, hopefully this one, doing some quick fire revision on business finance. I know there are more marks going in business finance, but we did some useful stuff on exam technique in the previous session and it was recorded. So go back over that. Great to see so many more people have come back for more in the live chat. So welcome to you all, Babatunde and the gang and the rest of the crew. So welcome, and please do use the live chat to have a go at some questions as we revise. As always, the session is recorded, and once we're done at about 7:30, I will be around later to answer any questions on comments in the live chat recording in YouTube. Okay, well, it's business finance. So now I know there are no multiple choice questions in the exam, but this is just a nice quick way of doing some quick fire revision of formulae. There are quite a few to remember. Now, don't worry if you don't know them all. Hopefully this might be a useful reminder. I've got some exam technique advice on calculations a bit later. Over to you. First one, A, B, C or D in the chat window. What's the formula for the gross profit margin? I'll give you a clue. It's either A, B, C or D. Kiki and Babatunde. Babatunde's on fire tonight, was very, very quick in there. Not the quickest, but Babatunde saying, Jim, it's let's stick it on the screen, shall we? He's so confident. It's 100% C. I'm hoping it's going to be C. We'll find out shortly. Quick fire revision of formulae. Yeah, indeed, the answer is, what a relief it is, C, yeah. Gross profit margin, it's one of our profitability ratios. Now, don't forget, we did a whole series of live streams going through the whole of business finance. There's a playlist for that, which I will link at the end of this, where we went through a whole session on profitability ratios. It's gross profit divided by sales revenue, or sales or revenue, whatever you want to call it, times by 100, expressed as a percentage. Now, don't forget, as we calculate ratios, it's important to get the right bit at the end. So in this case, a profit margin always has a percent at the end of it. Here's another one. What's the formula for, well, another profitability ratio, the markup percentage? What do you think? The markup percentage. Valerie, Maya, and Priya, I think, were first in the live chat, but there are hundreds, literally hundreds of people with us. And everybody else is going for the same answer, which is good. Number of people asking, when are you going to do break even? Well, would you believe it? It's the main focus for the last part of this session. So, and in fact, we'll touch on break even several times. Nearly everyone going for A. Well done. Give yourself a round of applause if you got A. It's a market percentage, it's a slightly different ratio. It's times by 100 again, but it's the gross profit not divided by revenue, but divided by cost of sales. It's just another way of a business working out how much, if you like, extra value or value added they add to the cost of what it makes them to sell or make something. Yeah. Now we're moving on now to a liquidity ratio. Don't forget there's three types of ratios, aren't there? There's liquidity, profitability, and efficiency ratios. This one is the liquid capital ratio. I saw an interesting definition of liquid capital ratio in the live chat earlier, none of which mentioned any of the words on the screen. So what do we think? It's either A, B, C, or D, obviously. And I'd say Lola and Priya. Lily, again, was very quick. You're very quick. Now, I know there are no MCQs in the exam, but if you're on fire, if you know your formulae, that's a good way of getting up to speed with the marks are available. Yeah, the answer is indeed D. Yeah, it's current assets divided by current liabilities, but we make an adjustment, don't we? So we take away the inventory when we calculate liquid capital ratio. We take that away from current assets. Here's one of our efficiency ratios. What's the formula for trade payables days? Bit of a clue there in the word trade payables in terms of one of the answers that you can probably eliminate. Amy is, I think, first in. Might have been somebody else, but I think Amy's the first correct answer that I've seen. There's a massive stream of answers coming through here on the screen next to me. It's quite hard to keep up, but it is the correct answer. Yeah, it is indeed C. So don't forget, efficiency ratio is really how efficiently do we manage our relationships with our suppliers and our customers. So trade payables days is an average, and it's expressed in days, which is why you need to calculate a number times by 365. It tells you on average how long it takes us to pay our suppliers. So if our trade payables days is, say, 60 days, it means on average we take 2 months to pay our suppliers. Sometimes in business it's a lot more than that. Next one. We're back to liquidity ratios again, and it's not the liquid capital ratio this time, it's the current ratio, perhaps the easiest to calculate. What do you think? Babatunde is saying he hates formulas. Well, you're not alone, mate, but they are in the exam, so we do need to use them. Elise and Fatima, Amina first in, and it's great to see lots of correct answers. Though one person's just asked, what's liquidity? Well, if that's a genuine question, liquidity is the ability, I'm sure it is, liquidity is the ability of the business to be able to pay what it owes, isn't it? So let's say I run a business and I have some staff I need to pay at the end of the week. Do I have the cash to be able to pay them? Well, that's liquidity. Do I have the ability to be able to pay them? Hopefully I do. And it is indeed current assets divided by current liabilities. Now, don't forget the current ratio. You don't express it as a percentage or days. It's a ratio. So it might be 2 to 1 or 1.5 to 1. So it's a ratio. Last one, I think. It's one of our efficiency ratios that often is a bit tricky. The inventory turnover days. What do you think? Inventory turnover days, A, B, C, or D? And again, most people going for the right answer. Rory and Charlie were particularly quick. Just looking at the live chat. Let's have a look. It is indeed D, yeah. So inventory turnover days, well, it's days, so we need to multiply it by 365. What the inventory turnover ratio does, it tries to say, on average, how much inventory are we holding? And how long will it take us to use it up? So let's say that number came out as, I don't know, 50 days. It means that on average, if you walked into the warehouse, let's say we're a distribution business or a shop, there's 50 days worth of sales or products there that we would expect to turn over 50 days. So that's what inventory turnover days is. And inventory, of course, is the stocks that we hold, the raw materials, the finished goods, the work in progress that we hold. And don't forget, inventory is an example of current assets. Right, now we're going to do some quick fire revision. We mentioned the exam technique on these. There are some give and state questions. There'll be probably 2 of them in section B, business finance. We know there's 2 in personal finance. Don't waste any time on these. Go for it. Quick fire answers. We're not looking for sentences. They only test knowledge. You don't need to write a sentence or paragraph. It's quick fire answers. So here's our 2-mark spinner again. Over to you in the live chat. I've put 6 different parts of the Unit 3 Section B spec, and I want you to give me or state 2 of the one that it lands on. Let's spin the wheel. Completely random, of course. Completely random. 2 internal sources of finance, please. In the live chat, can you type in very quickly 2 internal sources of finance? If you can remember what they are. There aren't as many internal sources of finance as external, but Scott is in there like a flash with retained profit, which is the correct answer. And Eclipse is not only gone with retained profit, but you've also put sale of assets. Sale of assets. Yeah, those are the 2 classic internal finances. Now, there's an argument about share capital or owner's capital. In theory, owner's capital is owed to somebody outside of the business, but in theory, you can also argue that it's internal. So that's fine if you put owner's capital as well. But yeah, the 2 I went with were the 2 that we had on the screen there. Retained profits, which is the profit that we make in the business that we decide not to pay out, for example, as dividends. And also sale of assets. Let's say we've got some spare land or maybe some spare computer equipment where we sell it and get some cash in for it. That's why it's an internal source of finance. Let's spin the wheel again. And let's see where it lands. We don't know, do we? That's why it's as much fun for you as it is for me. And it's gonna hope it doesn't land on, oh, it's a hard one, this one. Lines on a break-even chart. That should say break-even, not break-event. So what do we think? Lines on a break-event chart or even a break-even chart? Break-even charts are quite a tricky thing, but can you remember what the lines are? And they could be a 2-mark question, couldn't it? 2 lines that you would expect to see on a break-even chart. What do you think? And Mr. McNuggies is straight in there with fixed cost and total cost. Spot on. What else? What else? Actual lines that you would label. What do we think? Just looking for one more. Yeah, Archie's got it for total revenue, total sales, total revenue. And of course, the point, let's put my answers on the screen there just to see what I went with. Yeah, total costs, total revenue, fixed cost. Now, obviously, the break-even output is where total revenue equals total cost. In other words, that's the output if you draw down the break-even chart that says, well, that means we've broken even. We've not made a loss. We've not made a profit. Now, we're going to come back to that in our little activity in about 15 minutes' time. So the break-even point, if you were asked to identify from a break-even chart what the break-even point is, it's where the total cost line crosses the total revenue line, and then just work your way down to see what the output is at that point. Excellent. We're spinning the wheel again. As long as it doesn't land on purposes of accounting, I think we're going to be okay. Having said that, can you believe it? It's landed on purposes of accounting. Possibly the most boring question ever, but it's in the specification, so it could get asked, couldn't it? We sometimes do these activities and it comes up in the exam. We don't know. So what do we think? Give me or state 2 purposes of accounting. I am actually a trained accountant. You can probably tell. I try to keep that quiet, but I've just told everyone. I spent 8 years training as an accountant. So yeah, Marius is saying keeping finances in control. So controlling purpose. Ryan's going, Jim's just said monitoring. Looks like me. Anyway, it's right. Yula's going controlling costs. Babatunde is in there with a fantastic answer. Measuring performance. Measuring performance. Recording transactions. Yeah, controlling. Luke's gone for controlling, the controlling function. Now you might say, well, how many words do I need for this? It's literally 1 or 2 words. Will be absolutely fine to get the 2 marks. We don't want sentences for these 2 mark questions. So I've gone for monitoring, controlling, and planning. So I know there's planning, maybe a budget or some sort. Any one of those, any 2 of those 3 or others will be absolutely fine. We don't waste any time with the 2 mark questions. So let's move on to the explain questions. Now, we mentioned in our personal finance section that there are either 2 or 4 mark questions with the command word explain. Now, I've looked through every question in the last 9 years for Unit 3, and to be honest with you, I'm struggling to find many in recent papers where it's 4 marks. It tends to be, because there are more calculation questions and there's an 8 mark in there, it tends to be they don't have that many marks to play with, so they tend to ask 2 mark explain questions. But in theory, they could ask a 4 mark explain question. So if that's the case, it's just 2 lots of the same thing that we've just done in personal finance. So we do need to write a development point, a development sentence alongside our point. Now, if it's 2 marks, we just develop 1 point, state the point, add a development sentence. If it's 4 marks, we do it twice. You get the idea. So, for example, this was a question in the last paper for Unit 3. So it said, explain why a business might calculate the margin of safety. 2 marks. So we need to state 1 reason and then just develop it. Yeah. So here we go. I went with to see how much revenues can fall before we make a loss. Yeah. So that's what the margin of safety tells us, doesn't it? It tells us what's our output or revenues. Are they more than they need to be to break even? If they are, that's good news. We're making a profit. So therefore, it can tell us how performance can get worse before we start making a loss. And that would be an answer to that question. So over to you. I've had a go at that one. So over to you in the live chat, and it will only be 1. We don't need 2. Explain 1 advantage to a new business of using leasing to pay for the vehicles it needs. Over to you. Let's pick out a few in the live chat. So 30 seconds or so to have a go at this. What do we think? We're looking at, clearly the question is about leasing vehicles. And there are lots of different answers that you can have here. Let's go with Cosmics. It avoids the cost of depreciation. Absolutely right. In fact, that's a great answer. So if you own the vehicle, which isn't the same as leasing, if you owned it, you would suffer the fall in value of the vehicle, which is called depreciation. Fantastic answer. Love that one. That's not what I went with, but I think it's a better answer than mine, which isn't hard, I accept. Cosmic has actually put it in twice now. Or maybe I've just failed to. There's so many answers coming through. Yeah, Jess has gone for it avoids, from a cash flow point of view, it avoids having to pay large sums of money to purchase vehicles outright. Particularly if it's a new business, finances may be tight. That's a perfect answer. That is 2 marks all day long in 30 seconds. Then you move on to the next question. Yeah, Unisha, an advantage, it means you pay in installments. It spreads the cash flow, paying in installments, which spreads the cash flow for the business. So for the cash flow advantage, love it. What a great answer here. No need to repair it. It's the owner's responsibility. It is true, yeah. If you lease a vehicle, then it's the leasing company's responsibility to repair the vehicle if it breaks down or gets smashed or whatever, or stolen. It's not your vehicle. You have to insure it, but it's their vehicle. They have to look after it. So therefore, that would save cost and cash. Awesome answers. But can you see, you literally only need a sentence. I went with it preserves cash. It minimizes cash outflows. So I went with a cash. I said leasing vehicles can help a new business lower cash outflows compared with buying them. It involves smaller monthly payments. That's all you need. 2 marks, a minute and a half. Make some room for the calculation questions that come later. Let's try another. Now, this is quite a hard one. Have you looked at our session on prepayments and accruals? It's often an area that students don't quite grasp. Not you lot, but over to you. 2 marks. Explain how adjusting for a prepayment might affect the statement of comprehensive income, the SOCI? This is a hard question because it actually tests 2 bits, doesn't it? So explain how adjusting for a prepayment, and don't forget we'll mention, just do a quick bit of revision on prepayments just to explain what they are. I think this is a hard question. How does it affect the statement of comprehensive income? Wow, Maya, what an answer. Wow. It ensures financial transactions are accurately recording how the business is performed. In other words, it reflects the cost of what the business has done in the right period. And this is developed further by Edgesort. With a name like that, you'd expect a really good answer, and that's what we've got. So with a prepayment, the expense is taken out of expenses in SOCI, or the statement of comprehensive income, and it's shown as a current asset. In other words, it's shown as a value. The cost goes into the next period. That is a brilliant answer. That's brilliant. To help explain that, I'll just put my answer on it, but I can't beat that. So when we adjust for a prepayment, and it could be a question, couldn't it? Adjust for, I know, the fact that they've prepaid some rent, or they've paid for the insurance in a whole year, and not all of it is being used up. When we adjust for a prepayment, we're basically saying we've paid for something, but the value of that thing we've paid for isn't right now. There's some value in the future. Yeah. So we wouldn't take the whole cost in, would we, if there's some value in the future? So when we adjust for a prepayment, as has been pointed out in the live chat, the adjustment, let's say half of the amount that we spent, we take that out of costs and we put it into current assets under prepayments because it's value for the future. Therefore, that's a prepayment. And that's all you'd need to do for a question like that. I think that would be a hard question. Hopefully it won't come up, but that's how it works. SOCI, somebody's asking, what is SOCI? The statement of comprehensive income is otherwise known as the profit and loss account. It shows all the revenues and all the costs of a business in a particular period, and then you can work out from that what the profit of the business was for the period. SOCI, SOCI, is best to write rather than statement of comprehensive income to save you some time. Okay, let's do another one. These are good. These are hard. Now, somebody asked about break even. So give me a way in which a business could reduce its break even output. Explain one way in which a business could reduce its break even output. Anthony's persevering and asking me to shout out for Greeno. Well, Greeno, if you're here, even if you're not, big shout out to Greeno. And that's the last shout out for the next 10 minutes. Right, let's have a look. Boopy's gone for, reduce variable cost per unit. Absolutely. If you could reduce variable cost per unit, that would increase contribution per unit. Therefore, if everything else remains the same, we're making more contribution per unit. Therefore, our break-even output is less. Let's have a look. Some great answers coming in here. And lots of people going for the variable cost per unit. Yanisha, oh, hang on. I was just about to put it on the screen, and next thing I know, it's disappeared because there's been lots of other answers coming. It's back. I found it. Increase the selling price. Yeah. So if you can increase the selling price per unit, if the variable cost per unit stays the same, it means that our contribution per unit goes up. And as we'll see in a few minutes, that's good news for a business. Awesome. There are 3 ways, really, aren't there? There's increase the selling price per unit, there's lowering the variable cost per unit, or there's reducing fixed costs. Do any or all of those, and that would reduce break-even output, if you can. So 2 marks, state the point really quickly, 3 or 4 words, and then just a sentence. How does that reduce the break-even output? So it increases contribution per unit. If everything else stays the same, there's your 2 marks. Okay, we've got one more of these. I think we might have a couple more. Okay, well, we've looked at the ratios. What happens if you've got a question like this? Explain a benefit of using a profitability ratio. What do you think? Give me a benefit of using a profitability ratio. Tayo's getting a little bit upset. Can't please everyone though, can you? A benefit of using a profitability ratio. Oh, love it. Size to RAM allows the business to compare against competitors, as we'll see in a minute. Maria's making a great point to understand how the business is performing compared to previous periods. For example, this year versus last year. In other words, it's a means of comparing and analysing performance, particularly, specifically about the profitability of the business. To your right. Lots of answers coming in around performance, profitability. Alfie's a good point here. It can help you to compare your business to others, but also to help forecasting. If you analyse profitability ratios, you can then use those, can't you, in your forecasts or your budgets. Love it. What did I go with? I think I went with the competitor. Yeah, you can compare profitability with competitors and industry averages. So, for example, if you've got a higher net profit margin, that would suggest that you're maybe more efficient than the competitors or than the industry. Or conversely, if your margins are lower, maybe your net profit margin is really low compared with your competitors, that might suggest your costs are too high. But that's why it's a benefit of using ratios. It's that comparison factor. And I think we've got one more. Explaining the advantage, of crowdfunding. So crowdfunding is one of our external sources of finance. Hasn't really appeared that often in Unit 3. Might be tomorrow, who knows? Explain an advantage of crowdfunding as a source of finance. Over to you. Whilst we're doing that, Stella's asking, am I a football fan? I am, and big win yesterday, wasn't it? Massive win. Harrogate Town. Yeah, another win against Forest Green Rovers. We're on the way to the playoffs, if not automatic. What do you think? Well, let's go for. Oh, there's loads of great answers coming in here. Yeah, an advantage is it's a great answer. There's lots of detail in there. It may be a more accessible, easier form of finance that for new businesses, particularly if they can't raise finance from traditional sources, such as banks. It might be the only way they can raise money. Yeah, love it. What else have we got here? An advantage, yeah, it is. Yeah, crowdfunding generally isn't debt. It's often donations, actually. Don't even have to give away any of the business. It's often donations or money in return for a discount on being the first to have the product. Therefore, Sophie's point about free marketing, which I think is the point I've gone with, I think is a really good one. Yeah. Some great advantages of crowdfunding coming up. I went with, Sophie's point really, it can help build the customer base as well as raise finance. So it's often the case if you're a new business and you launch a crowdfunding campaign, that's a good way of getting money and support from the early adopters. Maybe you've got a new piece of technology, they want to be the first to have it. But also as part of that, you build an audience of people who are spreading the word about your product. So it can be, as a number of people have said, a great way of free marketing or effective marketing. Awesome answers. Oh, we got one more. Can you believe it? Explain how a business could lower its trade receivables days ratio. This is let's say you've got a situation tomorrow where the business has got some cash flow problems and it's struggling with high levels of amounts owed by customers. Can you give me a way in which a business could improve its trade receivables days ratio? Don't know what the pass mark's going to be. Genuinely don't know. Something similar to previous sittings, but no problem at all with the people who are live with us tonight. You're going to be absolutely fine. So we need to lower our trade receivables days ratio. So our answer needs to be quite specific here, doesn't it? It needs to demonstrate knowledge and understanding of what that ratio is. So Angelica's hinting at the right answer. It's shortening the time that customers have to pay back. Agreed. That's exactly what that is. So can we just develop that a little bit further to give me a way in which they could do that, how they could do that? And Lily's in there with a great answer. Lots of other great answers coming in. Yeah. So why not offer a discount to customers who pay quicker, pay faster, or even better, instantly. So in other words, don't offer credit sales if you can get instant cash sales, or if you do offer credit sales, give people a discount to pay quickly. Another good one, debt factoring's been mentioned. It's just it's appeared and then disappeared again. A number of people have mentioned debt factoring, which is a good way of lowering trade receivables days ratio, which is where you basically sell your trade receivables in return for cash and somebody else collects them. So what I've gone with providing an incentive. I went with Lydia's point, providing an incentive for customers to pay earlier, such as a discount so that they settle the amounts that they owe quicker. Excellent. Right, we have got 10 minutes left. So we're going to have a go at a little case study and give you a chance, if you wish, to do a calculation or two. Now, we've already talked in the personal finance section about the 12 marker and about how that needs a decision and evaluation. And in a way, I wanted a case study where we could think about that, but also think about how you might get a 6 or even an 8 marker. So there is an 8 marker typically in section B, which is basically an analysis question. It's basically exactly the same as a 6-mark discuss question. So let's use it as that. I could turn this into a 12 marker, which I'll explain briefly in a minute. But over to you. I just want to just finish off with a little mini case study, just to show you how to use some data and some calculations. And would you believe it, we've focused on break even. Now, let's go through the case study, and then I'll pass it over to you. I'm interested to hear your thoughts as to both sides, the balance of this argument. So, this is a fish and chip shop called Cod Loves a Fryer, and it's a popular fish and chip shop in Leeds near me, and it's got a loyal local customer base. So don't forget, with our application, the more you can use the case study, words or numbers or both, in your answer, that is application, that's context, that's the skill of application. Therefore, you're going to be scoring more marks. So we've got a fish and chip shop, popular, loyal and local customer base. However, the owners are concerned about the losses the shop has incurred recently following large increase in the costs of ingredients and the fixed costs of energy. So to improve profitability, so that would suggest that we're looking at break-even and profitability ratios possibly, the owners are considering increasing portion selling prices, so a portion is a packet of fish and chips, by 10%. And switching to a different supplier of ingredients who can supply at a lower cost, but at lower quality. So that's all we need to know to be able to sort of season, if you like, add a bit of salt and pepper to our answer with some application. And if you look at the table there, hopefully Jay Padgett is also looking at the table, as well as being active on the live chat. We can see some information, can't we? Let's see what we've got. We've got a column that says existing, so that's now. So we're told that they sell 22,000 portions of fish and chips a year. Okay. That might suggest that if we compare that with the break-even output, it will tell us what the margin of safety is. We're told the selling price proportion and the variable cost proportion. So a tenner for some fish and chips, and it costs £6. That's the haddock or the cod and the salt and the newspaper, whatever it is, tomato ketchup. We're also told some fixed costs of the fish and chip shop. So energy costs, now you can imagine they are going to be fixed costs. You've got to fire the ovens up and fire the grills up, no matter how many. It's fixed costs really, because you have to fire them up and keep them hot, no matter whether you sell one packet of fish and chips or none. So they're treating energy costs as fixed costs. The shop rent, £22,000, and other fixed costs of staff wages and other costs. So if you add those together, I think they come to, help me out here, I think it's £100,000, isn't it? The only other information we're given is that they're proposing to increase the selling price by £1 or 10%. And they're going to be saving on ingredients. So that's going to fall from £6 to £5.25. So over to you. Let's think about the question. Analyse whether the proposed changes will increase the profitability of Cod Loves a Fryer. So with that in mind, let's stick those on the screen there. What do we think? Let's go back, because I suddenly realised I've not hidden my answer. Let's go back. So what information could you use there? If we got something like this, let's say it's a fish and chip shop tomorrow in Unit 3, what do we think? Let's start with, will those changes increase the profitability? So have a think about that now, maybe for a few seconds, half a minute, and help me out in a live chat. Let's build an argument that says, yeah, these changes should increase the profitability of Cod Loves a Fryer. So we know we need two sides to the argument, but we're building the argument that says, yeah, it will. What do we think? So let's stick one or two answers coming into the screen as we go. Now, obviously, you've only had literally half a minute to think about this. So in an exam, you've got plenty of time on the 8 marker and the 12 marker. You don't have to write page after page. It's all about picking the data, maybe doing a calculation here and there, then using it. So Lily's making the point, yes, it will increase the profitability. Why? Because the variable cost per unit is going to fall by, what, 75p, I think? And the selling price is going to rise. In other words, the contribution per unit is going to increase. That should increase profit, provided that fixed costs don't change. What do we think? Any other reasons why it might do? We're going to come back to, I've got a couple of answers coming through that says, no, it might not actually. There might be an issue here. Quite a few answers coming through, making the case for saying it wouldn't. Let's give you a few more seconds and I'll take you through an argument that says why it might, and then we'll finish off with a few thoughts as to why it wouldn't. Youth voice is coming in here. Lots of effort being put into this one. Yes, it will increase profitability. Why? Because the contribution per portion sold is increasing. And provided that it doesn't damage the business, the selling price increase, doesn't damage the reputation, provided the quality of the products isn't altered, we've got a loyal local customer base. Therefore, it's quite likely that they'll accept the price increase because there's probably nowhere else to go to get their high quality fish and chips with a friendly voice. So that's an argument for saying yes, it would. But you can interweave some financials into that. Let's have a look. Kaylee Sheeder is wanting a shout out. Lots of people asking for Kaylee Sheeder. Well, I've done it. And that's probably half the live chat sorted out. Okay, now let's just put Evelyn's answer in here. Would have higher contribution per unit. That's really where it's at, this question. But you could also actually calculate the profit with the changes, assuming that they sell the same number. That answer there. So let's move on to now what I've done is I've just made the case for, and I'll take you through the case against. Well, there was the data. For something like this, 8 marks, you've got 10, 15 minutes to answer this. We don't need a recommendation. It's not a decision. It's not should they do it or not. It's analyze. Analyze, like discuss, means look at one side, look at the other. Don't waste your time writing a conclusion saying whether they should do it or not. That's not the question. That's an evaluation question. So what you could do, and the students are going to get sort of mark band 3 or 4 for this kind of question. Level 3 it would be, wouldn't it, for an 8 marker. Do 1 or 2 calculations and then use them in your answer. So one thing you could do is work out what the contribution per unit is now, and therefore what the break-even output is now, and then work out what the contribution per unit might change to. So what I've just done there is I would just do a little sort of bit on my answer sheet that says calculations for the answer, break-even output before. Well, our fixed costs were £100,000. Well, to get to break-even output, we need to have fixed cost divided by contribution per unit. Well, £100,000. The contribution per unit is £4 per portion. That's the selling price of 10 less £6. So in other words, to break even, we need to sell 25,000 portions of fish and chips. How many are we selling? 22,000. A consequence is we are therefore not at the break-even output. Therefore, we must be making a loss. Well, that's what they're concerned about, isn't it? What happens if we make those two changes? If we increase the selling price per unit and reduce the variable cost per unit with the cheaper suppliers, that increases the contribution per unit by £1.75 per portion, which is over 40%. That's a big increase in contribution per unit. And therefore, our break-even output is going to be significantly different. I think it's 17,000, not 773, 17,392 portions. In other words, we'll then be making a profit. So just by using break-even output, you can work out that if those two things happen, we will be operating above the break-even level. We're selling 22,000, we only need 17,300. Now, is that likely to happen? Well, it could do. And the reason why it might work is because there's other information in the case study. We're told the business is popular. We're told the business has a loyal local customer base. So if you just use that in your answer and says, well, yeah, it's quite likely that most customers will accept the price increase. Everybody else is increasing their prices. It may be they've got nowhere else to go to, and they love cod, loves the fryer. So even with the price increase, as long as the quality was okay, they'd be fine. Now, what about the counter argument? Well, you could say, as Youth Voice has done here, switching suppliers, the reason why it might not increase profit is that the danger is by switching suppliers, it could damage the business's reputation. So you might be getting a cheaper price for your haddock and your cod and your tomato ketchup, but customers will notice, and they'll notice that the quality of the fish and chips isn't quite as good. And therefore, there's a danger that we sell fewer portions. So a combination of the damaged reputation, poorer quality fish and chips, the fact that it's even more expensive than it used to be, that could be a reason why profit doesn't increase. And perhaps a better option would be not to focus on cutting variable cost per unit, but maybe to try and find ways of cutting fixed costs. And in this case, Youth Voice has gone with perhaps looking at ways to cut your energy costs. So with an 8-mark question, we just need an argument that says, yes, it will increase profits using some data. And an argument that says, no, it might not, using some situation, using some data. And that's it. We don't need a conclusion. We don't need a conclusion. Now, to finish off with, could it be a 12-mark question, this? Well, not quite, because with a 12-mark question, we typically have two options in business finance, don't we? They're considering option one, which this might be option one. They're considering option two. So option two might be changing energy supplier or moving to a different shop to get lower rent. So with a 12-marker, we have to have a decision. And therefore, there's typically two options. Now, what you do is you analyze the first option, then you analyze the second option, and then make sure that for your evaluation marks, you come up with a decision, which option is best and why. So you justify it and then consider what it might depend on. So it's just like we did with the financial study, personal finance case study. Analyze the option, analyze the alternative, come up with a decision. So something like this might be a 12-marker, but we don't have the other option, which is why I've not turned it into a 12-marker. Right, looking at the clock, I said 40 minutes for this session. So that's 40 minutes. A huge thanks to everyone who's joined me live, both for this session and for the previous session on personal finance. We've not covered every topic or every calculation, but we can't in 40 minutes. But I'm sure from the answers that you've been given, you're in good shape. Lots of really accurate and lots of relevant answers flying to the live chat. If you found the session useful, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube. If you've got any other questions about either personal finance or business finance that you want a quick answer to, please post them into the comments for the recordings of the two videos that go live in about 10 seconds time. And I'll try to answer as many as possible once I've been home and had my tea. All the best in Unit 3. I'll be keeping my fingers crossed for you. Try and manage your time well, answer every question, and go well. All the best.